What is going on, guys? We're back with another video today, and of course, a lot of people have heard Antonio Brown is headed to the Raiders. Now, maybe it's the location of where he's going, not necessarily the team, but it seems a little odd that Antonio Brown is actually more willing to go here than in Buffalo. You know, I'm not saying Tom Brady's going to retire this year, but there's a good chance Tom Brady retires in the next few years, and if Antonio Brown does stay with the team, with the Raiders for 3 years, and he were to stay with the Bills for 3 years, who knows who leads that division? The Bills, it's a little rough, but I don't really see that big of a difference between the teams. If anything, I'd like the Bills a little bit more than the Raiders here, and like I said, it just seems so weird that Antonio had no interest in going to Buffalo, but willing to go to Oakland? Well, Oakland, Las Vegas, whatever you want to call it now. Of course, basically, you kind of have to tie everything together because everyone's going to compare this new money to Antonio Brown to Khalil Mack, of course. We obviously know how that went. Mack killed it. However, they did get 2 first-round picks, so you can't really just shoot it down in that sense. So, of course, they lost Mack, they lost Cooper, they lost a 3rd, a 2nd, a 5th, and a 6th, and they gained Antonio Brown, 3 first-rounders, and a 2nd and a 5th. Of course, the first-rounders aren't all this year, but majority of them are. Obviously, it didn't pan out as well as they wanted to. The Bears, Cowboys, both, I would say, in my opinion, definitely exceeded expectations. But this money, it's kind of crazy. He's close to that $20 million a year situation. He's about to be 31. The biggest thing about that 31, I know not every receiver is the same, and there's a lot of guys that can perform in their later years. But just using as a Packers fan, a example is Jordy Nelson. When he hit around 31, 32, that's when his production really slowed down. And of course, when he went to the Raiders, ironically, really just did not have a good season. I know he had 1 really good game, but that was pretty much it that came from him. I know he had 700 yards, but like I said, really didn't do well other than that 1 or 2 games. Antonio Brown, for a team rebuilding, a team that's going to obviously be adding a lot of young talent, do you really want one of the faces of that team to be Antonio Brown, who's super self-centered? I don't know. Obviously, the Raiders, they're looking for talent. 3-year contract. It's not like you're locked in with the guy forever. They have a little bit of money. It is a little questionable that they didn't re-sign Mack. I think, honestly, the Mack situation might have been a little bit more that they knew the draft was going to be stacked with talent. They knew they can get the picks. It seems a little weird, though, talking about on the Steelers side now. It does seem, speaking of, draft compensation, that they got rid of him a little bit cheaper than we expected. To be fair, the Raiders, that 3rd-round pick, I don't know if it's actually their pick. I think they actually have it here. So it is pick 66 and 142. So 66 is actually pretty decent in fairness. So it's kind of close to that, pretty much spot on with that 2nd-round value that they were trying to get out of him. I really wonder what kind of, I don't know if they're going to say, but I'd like to know every single team that was in on it until the end. Of course, Buffalo, I don't know if they would have actually given a 2nd-round pick. It's not like it was, Buffalo got declined. It was more Antonio Brown declined them. And a little bit of the, both. I think Buffalo probably, I think they did drop out of it. They're like, yeah, we don't want to keep negotiating with a guy that doesn't want to be here. But Antonio Brown, obviously, going back to that Jordy Nelson comparison, I think Antonio Brown at this point in his career, at the same time as Jordy was in his career at the same age, I think Antonio Brown is a bit better. The question is, though, Derek Carr. Big Ben, he gets a lot of flack. A lot of people say he's terrible and this and that, but he's definitely better than Derek Carr, in my opinion. They have better offensive weapons than the Raiders have. I wouldn't say obviously, but they definitely have a better offensive line than the Raiders. It's crazy to say, but they also have a better defense than the Raiders. So how well will Antonio Brown actually perform? That's the question. He's not going to have one of those crazy good receivers on the other side of him like Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm not saying that Juju didn't get a lot from Antonio Brown, but there's no, they can't play on each other as much. Antonio Brown, even though he was complaining a lot, he had a really great under-the-radar season. I don't know where the complaints were at, to be honest. I don't see it. I really don't see it. All the things he did, the shady things he did in the media against his own team, I just don't like that for a team. You know, they had the Packers as one of the teams. I wasn't really interested in it. I mean, don't get me wrong. A guy like him paired up with Devontae, it would be sickeningly good. But the things he was saying about Ben Roethlisberger, Rodgers does the same kind of thing. So that was not going to fit. So let me know if you guys had, you know, if your favorite team, were you hoping he would join your team? Do you think if you're a Steelers fan, do you wish he would have stayed? I know a lot of Steelers fans probably thought of him before this year as a guy that would probably retire there. But I mean, hey, they got rid of Le'Veon Bell. They obviously just got rid of Antonio Brown. So it's going to be an interesting one to see what the Steelers are going to be like. They really didn't perform too well this year. Obviously, they didn't have Bell anyways. But this is a completely different team. I mean, a couple years ago, you thought of the killer bees, they call them, didn't they? I'm pretty sure they did. There's only one of those guys left, so this is going to be crazy to see. Another thing to think about is, of course, the draft. I mean, obviously, everyone's kind of thinking of who's going to be the guy to replace Khalil Mack. Do we see them going wide receiver at, what, number 4? Metcalf, I know a lot of people are saying he could go all the way to number 2 at the Niners. The Raiders, they might see Metcalf as that complimentary guy to Antonio Brown. The question is, would Antonio Brown be able to handle that situation? It's crazy to think, especially a wide receiver, but would they go to him about that decision? Would you be fine playing with Metcalf? Because, you know, it could be almost an exactly same situation as Juju Smith-Schuster, which would be kind of crazy to say. But I think, I mean, I don't think Antonio Brown solves their wide receiver issues necessarily. But number 4 for another wide receiver, I mean, they kind of picked 66, 142. That's kind of their way of addressing the wide receiver position. It is a little interesting, though. I know it's a 3-year deal, but with a team that, I mean, obviously every team thinks, hey, we're going to win it all this year, but let's be realistic. With a team that isn't going to be there in the next 2 to 3 years, did they jump the gun with a guy like Antonio Brown? I mean, 31 years old before the season even starts for a team that could very easily be 4 to 5 years away from having a good roster. Obviously, lots of draft picks to work with the next 2 seasons. But if they bust on those, which a lot of teams, you know, and I mean, let's be honest, it's a lot of picks, but it's not necessarily a lot of high picks. You're not guaranteed somebody great. Obviously, at number 4, they're kind of hoping that they are. But let me know who you guys think they should take in the draft. Do you think they should go Metcalf at number 4 if they have a chance? Do you think they should go with pretty much the universal expected route of pass rusher? I mean, at the end of the day, they do have 2 first-round picks. They could maybe trade both of those into the top 10. Well, maybe not top 10, but top 15, get a pass rusher there, take a wide receiver at 4. I know quantity is over quality, kind of, when you have that big of a need like they do. It's more than just 1 or 2 guys away, obviously. But I don't know. I like Metcalf there. I think Metcalf and Antonio Brown could do some things. I think it'd be nice. But once again, they have a lot of needs, so I'll leave that to them. And I think if we're gonna give this a yes or a no, a good grade, I guess so. I mean, Derek Carr isn't gonna do anything with nobody, so at least they finally have somebody to work with. Let me know what you guys think of the situation. Who would you have loved to see him sign with? If we're being honest, I thought maybe like a Ravens signing. I know that he wouldn't want to join a quarterback of Lamar Jackson caliber, but then again, is Derek really much better? I don't know. Antonio Brown clearly, just like Le'Veon Bell, was chasing the money, and I think he kind of wanted that spotlight back, even though like I said, he had a great season. I think he wanted to be that guy. I think he really did. He wanted to blame everyone else, but when he was shining, he wanted to shine hard. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm not going to make videos on every single, signing, trading, whatever, unless they're huge names. This was kind of had to. Le'Veon Bell will probably have a video for him. But yeah, we're going to have a rebuild later on today. And yeah, hope you guys, if you're new, subscribe. If you liked it, like it. Follow me on Twitter, Jeromepkr. But anyways, hope you come back for next video. But until next video, See ya!